the dashboard. There was a large amount of blood on the seats, on the door, on the dash.
Victoria is taken to Ogden City Police Department.
Victoria was adamant that she wanted to be honest and that she wanted to cooperate with the investigation.
So I was driving.
Victoria said during her interview that she was driving and that Tawny was sitting in the passenger seat.
And then when I was driving, we were still arguing.
She said that she was arguing with Tawny throughout the night about infidelity issues. She had accused Tawny of wanting to be intimate with men. She said that they began slapping each other in the car.
She was smacking me, and I was smacking her.
Victoria said that her only defense to that crash was to protect herself against Tawny's assault.
When she put my I realized I got so much because I got really pissed off.
She said that to her.
She was still smacking me. I was drunk. When the police pulled up to my house, he told me that my daughter was dead. And that Victoria was in custody and that she was out. And I just passed out. I just passed out.
The knife that was used in the crime was located in the back seat on the floor. It was about 5 to 6 inch foldable knife. Tawny had a significant amount of stab wounds on her face, her head, her chest. CSI noticed that there was blood spatter on the driver's side interior window, and that there was blood in the driver's seat. There was also a blood swipe that was across the center console. And once Victoria's jacket was zipped up, there was a clear void which showed the passenger side seatbelt had been across her jacket, which also confirmed Victoria was in the passenger seat when the assault occurred, with Tawny, the victim, in the driver's seat at the time.
There's no way you were driving when she was stabbed.
No, I was driving.
Not when she was stabbed. She was in the driver's seat when she was stabbed.
I believe Victoria said she was driving to help her self-defense claim, but that wasn't something that the investigators thought was possible.
You know how you mentioned honesty will set you free? You're leaving some things out. The medical examiner's assessment of Tawny's body at the crime scene counts 24 wounds across her arms, head, and torso. How many times do you think you stabbed her?
I'm serious when I say I don't know.
If you had to guess.
Maybe 5.
Do you want me to tell you how many times? 23 times.
Seriously?
That's a lot of rage.
Yeah, that is a lot of rage. She was just smacking me a lot and just firing me up a lot. I never have thought about killing her in my whole relationship. I've never thought about hurting her or like being weird. Like I just remember doing it really, 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 really fast.
A lot of force, and just going as hard as you could. Do you remember
I don't
that?
know about as hard as I could, but it's like eerie.
Victoria was incredibly stoic. I think she was in denial that Tawny was actually dead.
The initial assessment of Tawny's wounds was too low.
Tawny was transported to Utah Medical Examiner's office where she was actually
off into Ogden, and then that's when I wanted to go. I thought stop by the church.
Why do you think you went to the church?
I just thought I gave her. And then before you guys got there, I was just praying with her.
Dropping her off at her sister's, and she was done with the relationship. I think Tawny had said something in the car, and Victoria snapped. That's when the stabbing started. It's like a light switch flipped that night.
Victoria later changes her plea to guilty. She addresses the court at her sentencing in November 2015.
I have no excuse for what I've done, that's the main reason why I plead guilty. We have nothing to say. You monster. Go.
The way Victoria was in court was kind of unsettling. There were moments where she was laughing and smiling with her lawyer, which we all found really disturbing. She didn't look at us at all. After everything, she still wants people to feel bad for her. No one's going to feel bad for you now. You are a monster, and it is your fault.
Victoria Mendoza is sentenced to 16 years to life for the murder of Tawny Baird. She will be eligible for parole in 2039.
Look at how cute it is. It's the first time I've seen you two together in so long. That's a time when they're also weird.
I feel that Tawny's lonely. It's hard not having her around because I want to tell her so many things. We wanted to live through it, but we never accepted it.
My daughter was alive, and I was to dream of Tawny's future. I think that Tawny was on her way to California. I think she was going to end up being a movie star. Somehow, some way. I want Tawny to be remembered as that fun-loving, big-hearted little girl that wouldn't hurt a fly.
Tawny had so much to give and such a beautiful life ahead of her. And we loved her so.
How can I help you? And what's going on? What happened? Ma'am, can you please tell me your first name?
Margaret was a fun person. She was always laughing. She's amazing how things can go so wrong.
Take my pictures. My face is...
Okay, well, what if your face is in it?
Easy.
Roberta is one of those evil people out there. Maybe at one point she had Dennis in her heart.
It doesn't make any sense. Maybe yes, because of what happened. I have no idea what happened.
But her heart turned to stone. She was a cold heart.
It's wedding day for 47-year-old Roberta Boca and 42-year-old Ken Samar.
When Ken and Roberta got married, I was very happy for them. Been married, and divorced. Ken was married twice before, but he believed in true love. After his divorce, he went through times where he thought, oh, there's nobody out there for me. And then he met Roberta. Ken was excited. Roberta was too. She was always singing and happy. She smiled a lot.
So, my dad and Roberta's wedding in Vegas. A little funny at the beginning because the preacher was asking, "Are you ready?" And my dad said, "Well, yeah."
Are you ready? Yes.
No big deal. Come on, let's get this going. At the time that they got married, I was 15. We didn't know that they were going to get married. I was just going home and they were married.
Also, a responsibility.
Danielle and Matthew couldn't go to the wedding, mostly because they were vaccinated. They were still.
I felt a little let down. However, I think it was just neither of them wanted a really big wedding. Neither one of them were really the type that wanted to show off.
Ken and Roberta were in New York. They met at work 4 years earlier.
He was a millwright. She was a secretary, and they had mutual friends. So they would say to Ken, "Oh, you need to maybe ask Roberta out for a date." He really liked her, and he fell in love quick.
Ken's 3 children, Danielle, Matthew, and Bradley, are quick to welcome Roberta to the family.
Roberta was friendly. She always had a smile on her face. She liked her football and wine.
My first impression was, wow, that's not who I expected him to pick. It was always a little maybe rough around the edges, a little firm, a little maybe opinionated or just set in her ways. But I noticed a dramatic difference when they got together. For my dad's well-being, just his overall happiness. Kim and Roberta were fairly well suited as a couple. They were just a little bit alike.
They had a lot of fun together. They laughed. Ken was a cook. He loved to cook. You know, so they worked together in the kitchen. They would go camping or just get a hotel room at the coast. He was head over heels for her. I believe he proposed in August. Then they were married 50%. So it was pretty fast.
Can I ask you now, will you have Roberta as your wife, to share your life with her, to speak the truth to her, love, to honor, and to really care for her?
The look on my dad's face just seems so genuine.
And the family can know understood that I now renounce you as the whole life. Would you please seal your vow?
Roberta seems happy, genuinely
is mine and mine alone.
This is my dad. And Roberta.
My graduation party was at my house in Sweet Home, where I lived with my mom at the time when I studied. It was a little awkward, and I think it was awkward for Roberta too, being at my mom's house, and my mom's there.
This is my dad, Roberta.
Dad and Roberta got me in the car. I remember him saying something about how proud he was of me and excited for the next chapter and just confident that I would do it. I felt so that was one of the biggest gifts I got.
Nicola is mine and mine alone.
I mean, she would go to the family functions and stuff, but she wasn't, per se, really involved.
We never really got close to her. I don't remember ever having any, serious talks like as a teenager about boys or anything like that. Roberta, when she was around Ken's ex with the kids, didn't really interact and just kind of kept silent. Some people at the mill where Roberta and Ken were thought that she was kind of hard to get along with. They were kind of scared of Roberta. They said she was mean.
I would watch my dad watch Roberta. You could just tell by the way he looked at her that he really loved her. She really filled his cup up. He gave her his 100% trust, and it's not because he loved her. But love is blind.
I think Dad was excited for us all to, graduate, move on, start a new chapter of our life, to really get out in the world and be responsible adults.
When we were starting to become young adults and leave the nest, that allowed him more opportunity to be able to go and enjoy things that he would enjoy doing with Roberta.
Ken and Roberta and I would mostly go wine tasting together. That was sort of our common interest that we all had. Sometimes we would share the expense and sometimes they would pay.
I think the wine tasting could get a little spendy. They had a wine fridge at the house. Going to the seafood and wine festivals and the wine tasting at the different wineries and stuff was expensive. And I would say at least once a month they would be doing something. Roberta was pretty extravagant, but whenever the kids would ask to borrow some money, if they couldn't get a hold of their dad, they got a hold of Roberta. And Roberta would always say no.
And there's now another phase of joy for Ken and Roberta, being grandparents. In short order, Danielle had 2 sons, and her brother Bradley had a son and a daughter.
Ken was ecstatic because he was going to be a grandpa, and they called him Papa, so he was Papa Ken.
My dad did like to spoil the grandchildren. He would always give them nice gifts and get down on their level and interact with them to make them feel seen and heard. I always appreciated that.
really seemed to be that grandmotherly type of person. When my boys were babies, she didn't want to hold babies, which I thought was a little weird.
My dad really enjoyed spending time with his kids. I mean, I feel like sometimes that would maybe create friction in his relationship.
She was jealous of the relationship that Ken had with his kids. He would go over to their house to fix stuff or just play with the grandkids. He was gone for, 4 or 5 hours. I think when he came back with stories of how much fun he had, she was a little jealous over that.
In 2009, both Ken and Roberta are laid off of the paper mill.
When Ken lost his job, he was sad. Because Ken was a workaholic. He loved to work, loved to make money, and he didn't know what he was going to do. So he collected unemployment for a while, and then he started his own roofing company. He was determined to make what money he could.
I got the feeling that financially that they may have been struggling. My dad would be a little bit more frustrated. But you would never really know why. Maybe it was financial.
And there was money coming in, but not a lot. They just put a tighter grip on things.
In 2012, Ken and Roberta buy their dream home in Millersburg, Oregon.
I just remember Dad bringing us over one day and telling us that they had bought this new house in Millersburg, and he was really excited about it. I remember going and seeing it. It was beautiful. We loved it. It was out away from, people and the main roads, and had the barn. It was pretty. They loved it. They seemed really happy.
You see, Mom? What do you think of that snow? I feel like my dad was content with Roberta handling the finances. Roberta had a little bit of background in it. And so she was the one that always overseen the finances for the house and the mortgage payment, the estate, all of the bills.
Roberta had changed the mail that was coming to the house. She had got a P.O. box in town and had all the mail go there. So Ken didn't see any mail. Ken always joked about, Roberta's given me an allowance, and that's all I get. And he would, and then she would say, well, if you need more money, I could probably give it to you. And he'd say, no, I'm good.
I feel like he had complete trust in her, and he never questioned her. He believed in her. He stood behind her. He loved her.
There were a couple incidents that we had heard about, some extravagant gifts that she bought for some of their close friends.
Roberta loved her friends, and their birthdays or anniversary, she loved going all out, and she loved making these little gift baskets. They were pretty extravagant. She wanted her friends to know that she still could afford stuff.
Well, Emma, what did you get? Is that for Papa Ken and Grandma Bird? Did Papa Ken and Grandma Bird give you that?
Yes.
What is it? Puppies?
I never wondered how they could afford anything. My dad always seemed to be very responsible with money and worked his entire life, and so I just assumed he was okay.
Smile for the camera, Bird.
You can change my picture as long as my face is.
Okay, well, what if your face is in it?
He never let on about their finances.
he would say sometimes like, oh, well, I don't know, if we see when we can afford it. You know, just little things like that.
Yes.
But everybody thought everything was good. Just amazing how things can go so wrong. Ken and Roberta were on a roofing job in Corvallis, and the family got a call that he had fallen off the roof.
He had shattered both his heels, and he was going into surgery to have fake replacement heels put in. It kind of put a damper on him physically being able to work. I do think Dad felt that it was his responsibility to provide and to bring in the money. When he was in that bothered him quite a bit because he did feel responsible.
Ken retrains as a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning engineer.
He decided to get a different kind of job that wasn't so demanding, so he didn't have to stand on his feet a long time. This kind of fit right in his wheelhouse, that, you know, he could learn how to do this and make good money and support his family.
Roberta did seem supportive of my dad going back to school, but at the same time, it seemed like maybe it was really surface. Maybe there was something more there.
After Ken graduated, he had a job right away at Sunbelt. He really liked it. He brought things home to fix that people were just like discarding, little HVAC systems that people didn't want. He would bring them home and fix them in his garage, and he was excited to go to work every day.
Are you there? Go ahead. This is Lynn County. How can I help you? Ma'am, what's going on? What's going on? Ma'am, can you please tell me your first name? Roberta? Now, Roberta, I know this is hard, but can you please tell me what happened? You don't know? Okay, what's your address? You shot him? Okay, what is your address?
I was at home. I got a phone call or a text in the early hours of the morning that there was an incident in one of our small cities, Lawrenceburg. I live probably 10 minutes away, so it didn't take me very long to get to the scene. On my way there, the information I initially got was Roberta Samard had called 911, indicating that she had shot her husband, Ken. I turned on the radio so I can hear the radio transmissions that are going on from the deputy.
Ma'am, can you tell me, is he breathing? Where was he shot? Can you check and tell me if he okay? Can you tell me where he was shot? Okay, can you check with him? I want to check with his pulse and everything. You don't want to go see if he's okay? Roberta, can you tell me where they are?
contacted Roberta on the front porch and basically detained her, put her in handcuffs, and put her in the back of the car. Before I got there, I knew that Kim was dead. No life-saving efforts were going to be performed on her. When I arrived on the scene, patrol has responded. They've secured the scene. Kim is laying on her back. There was only one wound, almost in the crook of the neck, on the chin and neck. Also, there was
contact her. I was in complete disbelief.
We had patrol transfer her back to our sheriff's office. I think initially she was kind of surprised that she wasn't just being let go.
Always a pleasure. Goodbye. What is it? Goodbye.
She tells us that she plans on killing herself. What I think is she's telling me the story is, oh wow, this is the stuff the witness will never do. Ken leaves, goes out to his truck. She believes he's gone for the day. She retrieves the gun. She's walking around kind of aimlessly with this gun, trying to drum up the courage to kill herself. Ken returns to that back door on the deck. Ken sees the gun. Strikes Ken, causing Ken to fall down and die. Thought about killing herself. What do you think about hurting herself? Was going through my mind is start playing scenarios of how could this go down, or looking at trying to figure out, Roberta, why do you want to kill yourself? What has gone wrong in your life?
Have you ever known anything? Did you know what you were going through and thinking?
She really isn't specific on why she wants to kill herself, other than she's then sad. There's no impending divorce. Is Kim's not having an affair? Is it just the simple fact that she's together as long as crap, and she was never suicidal to begin with? During this whole interview, now mind you, Ken is still laying on the back bed. And at no time did she ask about Ken, what was going to happen to Ken, which was just a huge flag saying something's crazy here. This is just not right. During this interview, Roberta was telling us that she shot her husband. She may act like she's crying, but there are no actual tears coming out of this woman's eyes. That's not normal. That is not a normal behavior. So, huge flag for us.
When was the last fight that you guys done? So every year before, these are stable.
Okay, you're having financial problems. Tell me about those.
Is he spending too much? If it's not, it's what he said he's spending.
She brings up these financial fights and then kind of downplays them, and then tries to move on from that.
All I know is that it went off. That's not pulling that down. It's not easy. I pulled the trigger. I'm not gonna lie about that because it's still things happen. Yeah.
She also talked about how the gun had a stiff trigger point, so it was pretty hard to pull the trigger.
The prosecutor's office became involved in this case in November of 2015, November 16th of the date of the crime. Talking about the trigger pull, that was a very important statement for our case. When we have somebody who is saying that this was accidental, for that to be true, this has to be a gun with a light trigger pull, one that could possibly go off on its own, which of course it wasn't. She said, I intentionally pulled that trigger.
It's not like I would accidentally went off. I can't tell you that I accidentally went off because I happened to pull the trigger. I pulled the trigger. I intentionally pulled the trigger. The gun wasn't supposed to be pointing to him.
It's starting to look like that wound to Kim was more of an intentional thing than an accidental thing. We asked her if she would be willing to help us and do a reenactment. It helps us get a better understanding of what may have occurred and may let us see things that we haven't pictured in our mind.
Roberta was surprisingly willing to go back and do this reenactment with the detectives at the scene, and I found that to be bizarre. How could you go back to the very place where earlier that day you actually posted a post? But she was willing to do that.
So you stepped out? Okay, so let's go ahead and shut the door.
was standing out there like that.
She placed one detective where she said Ken was.
He must have been like right here.
And then placed herself where she was. And walked through the act of raising the gun. She raises it up and takes a step back.
So, as you're stepping outside the threshold, how do you bridge the gap?
He was standing like this.
Like this?
That piece of her statement where she says he's walking backwards, in other words, creating distance between her and him, doesn't make any sense at all in combination with her claim that she's raising the gun to herself and then accidentally shoots him. In order for that to be true, there's got to be some kind of struggle over the firearm. Versus there must have been a struggle because of what I was planning to do with the gun and what happened. But she won't commit to saying that there was a struggle.
Her story is crumbling faster than a dry cookie on a plate. In my mind, I'm like, there's no way this is possible. You killed him for a reason. And now we just need to figure out what's the motive? Why the hell did this happen? But what's surprising in talking to the family that they didn't indicate anything about Ken or Roberta? It appeared that they had what you would refer to as a perfect marriage as possible. But then one of the family members mentioned a couple years prior that they had actually seen it published in the newspaper that there was a foreclosure notice for Ken and Roberta's house.
My little brother kept seeing in the paper that Ken and Roberta's house was up for foreclosure. And my brother called Ken on a couple occasions and said, I can loan you the money to just pay the house off because it's not that much. And Ken would say, no, it's okay. Roberta's got it all under control.
We talked to the representative of the company that purchased the house. The house had ended up going into foreclosure. It had actually been sold prior to Ken's murder. Roberta had contacted these people and asked for time to move out, like 30 days. The day they were supposed to be out was November 16th, 2015, the day Ken was killed. When you walked into that house on November 16th, there was nothing boxed up.
During the search of the Smart house, detectives found foreclosure paperwork at the bottom of a laundry hamper, which was very striking to us. They had lost the house. He didn't know it, and she did.
When we're getting this information, we're like, okay, that's it. We're starting to get to the bottom of this puzzle.
In Ken's study, investigators recover a self-help workbook. Inside, Ken recorded his thoughts about his relationship with Roberta.
She's always right. Why is it that if I ask for a clarification, I'm being difficult or mean? You would think that someone with all the answers would be a little more respectful of others. My wife has power over me. She has control of our money at home. I'm not sure why he felt this way or would allow it. It's kind of heartbreaking to know that that's how he felt, that she had power over him and controlled everything.
Roberta basically held the purse strings. She had control of their bank accounts, their passwords.
The workbook kind of helped us show that Ken's not as happy as everyone thinks, and he might be thinking about leaving. And one of the other little pieces of information we found was a little note. It was written by Ken to Roberta.
Ken had left a note for Roberta discussing the MasterCard being maxed out and that they need to talk about where they were at. From the context of the note, it seemed that he was surprised about that, and so that may have figured into a possible motive.
It's kind of, obviously, some a firearm was involved, or weapons involved. And living in the store with everything in place, we're rising to the level of a manslaughter. So you will be arrested for that. Okay? And I think you probably have a copy of mine at some point.
And when she was arrested, I think she was a little astonished that we didn't believe her story. She was astonished she was going to jail.
While Roberta awaits trial in jail, prosecutors build the case for murder.
Then the medical examiner performs the autopsy and learned that this was, in fact, a contact wound. That Roberta pulled the trigger of this gun while the muzzle was pressed against Ken Samar's throat.
They did some analysis of Ken's wounds, and if she's coming up to shoot herself, she's shorter than Ken. That angle of that entrance wound is going to be more vertical than horizontal. But what was actually found in that wound was there was more horizontal. The trajectory the wound path showed that it wasn't just a coming up and they got an accident. That was the key to the case.
Once we knew that, it was clear to us that this was an intentional act and therefore murder. The trial was in April of 2017. It was 2 weeks long. The case that we put forward was built on what the physical evidence showed us. The jury deliberated between 4 and 5 hours, and at the end of that, they convicted Roberta Samard of murder unanimously.
The evidence gathered during the investigation points to Roberta's possible motive.
If there was a motive, it was tied into her mismanagement of the finances. We know that Roberta had control of all finances, that she would have been the one with the means to spend their money. To the extent that any spending put them in the position that they ended up in, they would have been due to her.
Ken didn't know the house had been sold. Roberta hid this.
It would appear that he was figuring out that they were in a bad situation financially. She may have known about his frustrations, may have known that he was thinking about leaving. Those factors may have led her to commit murder.
Ken might be thinking about leaving. Then you've lost your house, you've lost everything, and now you're going to lose your husband. I think he was leaving for work. There was a conversation. I think she already had the gun on her. I think that conversation probably escalated. It led to her killing Ken. I think if you take all the physical evidence, all of the inconsistencies in Roberta's statements, it just goes to show you that she intentionally killed him.
You didn't intend to shoot him?
Her story of him accidentally getting shot was just a BS story that she had made.
dad was a very loving, giving person. If there were more people like my dad in the world, the world would be a better place. That's for sure.
What I miss most about Ken is his laugh and his smile. And if you were having a bad day, he could always make it better.
I don't feel like that there is able to be justice. There's nothing you could do to somebody else that's going to make Ken be able to be there again for his grandchildren or make his grandchildren be able to enjoy him. We remember Ken as probably the best grandpa.
My mom was always like the nicest person like in the room.
My dad was really good at it. He can be very charming.
There was a lot of blood, a very grotesque gruesome
Harriet Gerges and her husband Magdi are celebrating an engagement in traditional Egyptian style.
The engagement party was for my aunt Vivienne, which is my mom's youngest sister. I was 6 years old. She was getting married to Uncle Paul. My dad's agreed, and then my mom is like in the back corner. It's taking place at my grandma's house in Sacramento, California. A lot of family lived in San Jose, Fremont, and different areas, so they would all come together to my grandparents to do different celebrations. My parents met in January of 1981 in Egypt.
They both followed the Coptic Orthodox, which is kind of like a strict Catholic. My dad had like some family member that knew my mom's family. So it was actually an arranged marriage. They literally were together for like about 2 weeks before they got married. So it was pretty fast. They ended up living over in Santa Clara. And I was born in October 16, 1981. Maggie and Harriet worked hard to build a life for themselves in California.
My dad was working at Boeing, formerly McDonnell Douglas, doing electrical work on planes.
Mom was working for Magnavox down in Southern California, and she was doing like an electric assembly. My dad Maggie took care of the bills. He had grown up really poor, so he was very frugal. Anything money related would create a lot of tension. When I was roughly about 2 years old, he got like really upset about my mom throwing some of the rotten apples away. He said some parts of them were still good. He actually dragged her over to the trash can to pull it out. He was just straight, like really, really cheap. He literally hit my mom basically over rotten apples. He could be really like chill and then just snap and stuff like quite a bit. But I don't think she realized it was going to escalate. And then later on, it was roughly about 3 to 4. They had gotten into an argument, a fight, and my dad ended up grabbing her arm
and ended up causing like a fracture in her arm. She wouldn't leave because of cultural boundaries. My mom was really religious, so it's like for her, like it was really important to stay in the church. But eventually, you know, they they buried the hatchet. At these events, he would be like very friendly, charismatic, very charming.
Maggie promises to keep his temper in check. He and Harriet's relationship is stabilizing. And by the time of her sister's engagement party in 1987, Harriet is expecting her second child.
I remember my mom, she was like about to pop. He was like, you know, he was genuinely, you know, like helpful. Ryan was born. It was kind of happy period for a little bit. Growing up, I do remember like my dad like playing soccer with us. He showed me like how to do a lot of math stuff like division and multiplication and all that.
Education was going to be high priority. He also wanted us to be financially savvy. But the boys also see a darker side to Maggie.
My dad was a really strict father. He could be like, really fire me. I remember when I was